Hello. So, I normally do these outside, but I have been asked to look into this, so I've just got back, so I'm gonna have to do it from here. Excuse the halo of frizz as well. I mean, it's quite something. Anyway, I want to talk about the place CHOP or CHAZ that has emerged in Seattle, which is an autonomous zone, police-free zone in America now. Now there's a lot of reports from different groups of people, and it's very hard to really get a clear idea of what's actually taking place there. Now, what I do think is the way that happened is that the group there were handed City Hall. It was opened up to them by police, by authorities. So, in my opinion, anything that happens there is allowed to happen there. And so, it can't be a real revolution. That's my opinion. If establishment is on your side, they don't think that you're going to achieve anything. And I think that maybe they could be right about that. Because what I'm seeing is essentially an eco-village emerging in a city. Now, obviously, or maybe not obviously, maybe I'll go into this, but Seattle has its own weird history, recent history, with political change and political groups. So Antifa, who I'm referring to when I'm talking about Antifa, I'm not sure, which is part of the problem straight away. Antifa have been very present and active in Seattle. There's been a lot of right-wing coverage of Seattle and how these sort of left-wing extreme groups have been allowed to do whatever they want in some regards. Now, there was a right-wing protest in Seattle at some point, and Antifa went down and attacked them. And this was in Seattle. And so there is that history, recent history in Seattle that I think we need to be aware of with regard to this CHAZ place. It seems like they're going with CHOP for the moment. But I'm not sure what the objectives are. And yeah, my question is who is actually organising stuff in this area. I don't have a problem with the area myself. I mean, if there is an actual aim, if there's an idea at least of what's going to happen with this area, you know, are the people who live in this area okay with everything that's going on, live and work in that area, you know? Is everyone okay with that? Are they being consulted? Are they, you know, are they being considered? And yeah, so there seems to be some form of anarchist organisation working within the area. There's Antifa, and then there's Black Lives Matter. I think as we're finding what those groups refer to, we don't actually know anymore, because the people within the groups believe that these things all mean a different thing, and that is, I keep being brought back to this, unfortunately, but I do think maybe we are just in a postmodern era, and that's part of the struggle. I don't like leftist pushes always to define things, because I feel like the left gets caught up in defining things too much. But to have some clear idea of who we are talking about when we're talking about Antifa and BLM and Marxists and capitalists and all of the, I think we should have some kind of consensus to be able to actually have a discussion. Because, you know, if words have no meaning anymore, we can't have a fruitful discussion. So, okay, apparently the CHOP activists they have 3 solid goals: defund the police, invest in local communities, and release all protesters. And as this article rightly points out, the meaning behind all of those things isn't clear. So I might do a separate, no, I'll cover it here. Defunding the police. What is meant by that? And who came up with that as a term? Because it could never achieve what they say that they want to, based on literally the words that they've used. Defund the police sounds like abolish the police, right? And that's what the majority of people are reacting to now, especially on YouTube. I've seen it with Joe Rogan as well. I've seen it with Andy Schultz. I've seen all of them discussing this and saying, well, getting rid of the police is stupid. What about when you get burgled? And to some extent that is true. You know, you do need a group of people who are going to chase down the murderers and try and fight cybercrime, and you know, you do need people doing those things. But what's actually meant by defund the police is generally reverse the inflated funding of militarised policing, and instead of funding a militarised police that escalates every situation, think about funding alternative means of solving the same social problems. Joe Rogan keeps talking about a good example of that guy in Atlanta who got killed from a police interaction because he had drunk too much and was asleep in a parking lot in his car. He was complying with the police the whole time until they said, well, we're going to take you to jail. Then he fled, and then he got shot. He was drunk, and he died because of that. And Joe Rogan keeps saying, like, well, what if you had, I think he says, what if you got this guy named Mark, and you just say, you know, hey, buddy, we're not going to arrest you, but we're going to get you an Uber, we're going to get you home, and I'll pick you up in the morning, we can come and get your car, and you can pay a fine, you know, for wasting public time and just being irresponsible as a citizen. But you don't need to go to jail. You don't need a record. You don't need to be kept in a loop of probation and the criminal justice system for the rest of your life just because you made a mistake that most people would be able to get around without police even ever finding out. You know, a lot of people when they get drunk call someone, you know, if they get that drunk, are able to call someone at some point and go, here mate, could you pick me up, or whatever, you know. If you don't have that social network and you're going through a tough time, should you be put in jail because of that? Should you end up with a criminal record because of that? Because he didn't drive, you know. Anyway, I've gone off on a thing there, but oh, I can't actually remember. Oh yeah, so defunding the police. That's one of the kind of ideas, and it's a very small example, but you know, putting funding into social services and stuff like that instead of training police to shoot people. There's a lot within defund the police, and apparently that phrase was used to prompt discussion because people would talk about it. But what's actually happened is that people have distorted the meaning of that phrase and now can easily argue against it. Because it sounds ridiculous if you don't know what it actually means. And no one's going as far as, okay, so what does that actually mean? People are just going, you can't get rid of the police, that's stupid. So there's that. Then there is, what else was it? Invest in other things. That's what defund the police means. So you're saying the same thing twice, so that worries me. As soon as you get that kind of a thing, I worry that those goals, who's setting those goals? Because those are the same goal. So either you don't understand your own goals, or you're saying things that you think will be so extreme that they'll have to come somewhat towards you. And that seems to be the basis for most political decisions. Demand something extreme and compromise somewhere in the middle. That's not a good basis for political change. Ask for what you want. And that's it. And be clear. That's it. And then what was the final thing? I can't remember. Release all protesters. As long as they're peaceful, release all peaceful protesters, sure. If anyone's been attacking people, or, you know, vandalising the area and stuff, don't know. Don't know about that. So, there you go. Apparently within Seattle, the police department gets a $409 million budget every year. Defund the police doesn't mean give them zero. It means stop giving them so damn much and start funding other areas and other departments and other institutions that could easily deal with the same social problems before it gets to a criminal aspect. So yeah, so I wonder with this CHAZ, CHOP, whatever you want to call it, this place, I wonder if it is intended to be an outlet, You know, I wonder if the establishment has gone, okay, we'll give them that. They'll run themselves out of energy within a couple of months. And then we'll be able to say, okay, well, we'll try and implement a couple of your things. You know? And I say that because of the fact that Town Hall was given to them, to the protesters. Occupy was never given a space, you know? They took it. And if establishment is on side with any of the moves that you're making, I don't think that they think you're going to affect real change. So I just wonder what the point is of all of this. Is it to make people feel like they're getting change so that they can concentrate all their attention on this, what seems revolutionary place, when actually it'll fizzle out in a few weeks because no one has a plan? That's what it seems like to me. And I am just not sure what can be achieved in this place. I think it's able to be turned into a spectacle so that either side can go, oh, look at this thing that's happening. And actually not achieve anything. That seems to be, to me, what's going to happen with this place. And yeah, I think if you don't have a clear plan of what you're going to do, it can be turned into anything. So yeah, I think if establishment has helped you in any of your moves that you've made, they probably don't think you're going to do much. So yeah, I would say maybe let's not invest too much in this place.